Well, investment group Soul Pattinson and its sister company Brickworks, in which it has a cross-shareholding, had their joint results this week, and Chairman Rob Millner is on the hunt for new bargains. Well, Soul Pattinson's statutory profit roared in at $953 million, thanks to its investment in TPG, which has recently merged with Vodafone. Well, Tiki caught up with Chairman Rob Millner.
Finally, we got it through after all the various government agencies trying to rebuff it. So after 2 years, we finally got the tick. So the TPG and Vodafone are now one. So,
what did that do to the bottom line?
Well, it gave us a $120 million special dividend in cash, and also under the accounting policies, we reported that large abnormal profit.
And because of the way you and Brickworks are structured, Soul Pattinson Brickworks with that cross-shareholding, that really lifted the Brickworks profit line as well.
Yeah, and on the stat level, yes, it did. But unfortunately, both of our underlying profits were down, mostly caused by the coal mining on the Soul Pattinson side with the lower coal prices, again, COVID. And unfortunately, in the brick division, we shut down our factories at Christmas, and then when it came again in March, we had to shut some further factories down there. So that's sort of the two impacts.
When it came to Brickworks, well, let's go to Brickworks. That was the biggest impact, was it? Those shutdowns.
Well, I said some of them had to shut down twice.
You did quite well on the property side.
Yes,
within Brickworks.
Yes, no, that's a very good investment for us, the industrial space. Fortunately, our forebears before us went where the clay was, and now some very valuable land, particularly in Sydney and Melbourne. And in Sydney, we've put this very good industrial portfolio together with Goodman's, and as you've seen in the results, Amazon are building a massive shed out there. Coles are building a massive shed out there.
Yes. What is it? 38 football fields the size of
something incredible like that.
Amazon's thing.
And it's a new style of industrial shed. They're single story, the old ones, and these new ones are multiple 3 or 4, 5 stories. So we're going to see a change because the original industrial site was about 15 years old now. So going forward, in 5 or 6 years, I think we'll see some of those old sheds pulled down, and these newer type models will go in there. So this.
So that's more redevelopment potential for you.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's very interesting. So let's go to your capital side.
Yeah.
2 things. Firstly, unbelievably, year 20, you have still managed to increase your dividend. I think you're the only company on the index now that has done that.
We're the only one standing. Yeah. And don't forget, we've increased it every year, twice a year since 1903. So we're the only ones certainly that have done that. So, and we're not very lucky, but over many years, the companies we've picked that we invest in generate good cash. Even at the lower coal prices now, New Hope is spitting out good cash.
Yeah. So do you think you're going to be able to continue to do this? Because, of course, the TPG deal was the reason you were able to. Yes,
but you've got to remember, we don't pay out 100% of our earnings, so we've got a lot of unpaid dividends, if you want to call it that, and a hell of a lot of franking credits and a hell of a lot of retained profits. So we'll be able to keep going at this rate.
Now, the other question around capital is, for the first time, I think, you've actually gone out and borrowed.
Yes.
Now, why is that?
Well, all of us have never been in this environment we're in before with these very, very low interest rates and low inflation. So we thought it was an opportune time to go and borrow some money, because I'm sure there's going to be opportunities around the corner. Maybe not so much in the equity markets, but I think maybe early next year there's going to be some distressed assets come onto the market.
Right, so you'll be looking at that time. And what do you think the huge cash splash of the budget is going to do?
Well, that's a bit early to prejudge that, but obviously they've got to try and keep stimulating the economy. The great worry to me is how all this debt around the world is going to be repaid. And I think when there's JobKeeper, I think some of it's retracking tomorrow, I think, or the next day, how some of this is going to affect people going forward, unfortunately, because working in the city, a lot of people that don't come into the city don't realise how bad these capital cities are. No tourism. And I know very few people working in offices, they're ghost towns.
Do you think the shutdown should have been as severe in a place like Melbourne as it was?
Well, they were a different category down there because they didn't do it properly in the first place like everywhere else did. But Queensland is just ridiculous. Particularly in operating businesses, we just can't move engineering type people around to repair factories, and coal mining people can't move around to visit operations. And it's very important when you haven't got your senior management checking on these various businesses.
The other thing the government has done, obviously, is it's put a huge amount of money into a fibre to the home for the NBN, plus it's going after small businesses as well. Now, you've got a 26% shareholding in TPG. How do you see that as a new competitor?
Under the new merger, we now own only 12.5%, but it's right. Still, percentage-wise, it's still the same. It's going to might put the cat amongst the pigeons, but we're very confident. TPG's got the best fibre network in Australia. We've got the best backhaul, and we're the lowest cost producer. So I think.
So you think you can produce more cheaply?
Yeah.
Broadband.
Well, this is provided NBN can keep going. They can't keep running at these billions of dollars every year in losses. So sooner or later, there's got to be some reckoning now, I would have thought.
And what are the implications of 5G, do you think?
Well, according to David Teo, who's probably the leading telco guy in Australia, 5G is going to change things dramatically. People now know if they've got the difference between 3G and 4G. And I know when I go to my rural properties, downloading board papers on weekends, 4G is just as quick as it is using my internet on the property. So 5G is going to be so much faster. And all the younger ones, everybody taking these tablets and phones. So I think you're going to see a dramatic change in people's lifestyle with 5G.
And hopping over to America, of course, we've got the US election coming. Does that make any difference to your businesses over there, particularly Brickworks?
I think in the building products, probably not as much as a lot of other areas, I would have thought. But again, they've been badly impacted over there with COVID. Yep. Things are picking up. We've been quite surprised both here and in America, the detached housing. The builders in Australia they've had some record throughput through display villages, which to me is quite staggering.
Rob, going back to coal for a moment, obviously you've had these depressed prices. Some people talk about the death of coal. Australia really can't go on producing coal.
In Australia, it's very a lot of negative press about building some coal-fired or even gas-fired power stations here. But particularly in Asia, they're still building these new high-energy, low-emission coal-fired power stations. We have the best quality and lowest polluting coal in the world. So I can see in the medium to short term there's still good demand for Australian coal.
And you feel your investors will support you in that?
Well, people have bought the shares will. There's always people who want to have a go at you or criticise you, but at the end of the day, if you look back at Australia, the reason we're in such a strong position we are today, we've had cheap energy for a long period of time.
This gas-led recovery, is that going to make a difference, do you think?
Well, it's got to help. It's got to help. I'm a great believer in renewables, but we need baseload power. And to give you an example, we're paying 3 times more for gas here than we pay in America, and twice as much for our electricity than we do in America.
Do you think the government's reforms are enough to change that?
Well, I think they've got to push them through. And some parts of the Labor Party now are supporting that. But as I said, we need cheap energy.
And you mentioned that early next year was a likely time for some bargains. What will you be looking for, Rob?
Well, as you can see by our portfolio, we can go anywhere. We've always tried to focus on cash-generating businesses, and I think we've proved that over a long period of time, the way we've been able to pay our dividends. So we need one to have good management, because I haven't got anyone in here I can send out to run someone's business.
How many managers do you have?
I've got one managing director and a finance team and some young blokes in the investment bank. So we haven't got people to go out and run a business if it goes pear-shaped. So we've got to look for good people to run the business, and it's got to be a good cash-generating business. So we can get cash out of that business, then in turn to pay ourselves shareholders. But
you'd be looking for a long-term investment, because when you think of NBN Television, for example, which became TPG over many years, didn't it?
Yeah, and we often discuss around the board table, our business today, is it going to be the same business it is in 10 or 15 years' time? We've had some dramatic change in the last decade all over the world. Yeah. So we've got to try and pick the right ones, and we've got some good people here. Rob
Millner, 20 years of achievement, and a happy 70th birthday this year as well.
You don't need to bring that up, Tiggy. Thank you very much.
Great to talk with you.
Thank you.
The chairman of Soul Pattinson there, Robert Millner.